Welcome to the last section of the class, which is our sprints. For these sprints, we're going to be creating a class selection app. What you see before you is the first page, which is our logon page of the app. Now what we're going to have is we're going to add a bad login. So I will come up here. You'll see the keyboard pop up. I'll just type bad login. And I'm just going to hit login. You'll see invalid login, please retry. We'll successfully type the login, and you'll see an invalid password, please retry. If I type in the word password and hit log on, you'll see success. This is what we're going to create today. So let's get started. All right, let's begin. So we're going to create a new project. I'm going to name this Class Selection App. Run it next. We're going to leave the API at 15. Empty activity. We'll leave the main activity just the same and hit finish. Now as this loads, we're going to resize this in the screen. Always wait for your project to finish loading before you start. That looks good. By making sure that it's here, it says Gradle finished. If you start doing this beforehand, you might encounter an error later or a corruption might occur. So what I'm going to do is we have a drawable that we're going to need to download. This is inside Canvas, inside your assignment. You'll find a link to it. Go ahead and pause this video and download the drawable file, which is the logo for MCC. Right. So once you've downloaded the file, you should open up Internet Explorer, File Explorer. Right-click and copy. And then we're going to come over here to the drawable folder and paste this in. It's going to say mcc_logo.png, and that is an appropriate name. So we're going to paste that in. And then you'll see it right here. Now, for the first part of this assignment, we're actually going to go into Activity Main. We're going to be using this layout here, and we're going to be adding strings to the strings.xml file so that we can change them really easily. So the easiest way to do that is what I like to do is go up to Window, Editor tabs, and then split horizontally. Okay. Now what we're going to go into is Values. We're going to come down here, click in there, and then go into Strings. That's going to basically put a string file down here. So I'm going to close this. And now I'm just going to shrink this down to make this so I can type stuff in as I'm going through the layout. Always go ahead and delete Hello World. I've found that sometimes leaving it there or changing it will actually have a problem with each of the constraints that you put in after that. So what we're going to do is go ahead and use the MCC logo. We'll go to Images, Image View, and we'll drag one in. Inside here, we'll hit the MCC logo. Now, when putting in an image, sometimes it will actually not refresh. We might have that. We'll see. So I'm going to shrink this down. I'm going to set the left constraint over to the side. I'm going to set the bottom constraint, click that, and drag to the bottom. This way it's attached to the left-hand side and bottom. I'm going to resize this a little bit. And then we're going to come over here to Scale Type. And we're going to fit center inside. And if you notice, it did not refresh. The quickest way to do this is actually close this and double-click and reopen this. See how it resized it in here? There are some refresh issues inside of Android Studio, but it's getting much better. So we have this now. So we're going to come back and we have to do a login and a password. So we'll come up here, hit text view, and I'll come in here and take care of this. We'll take the left side, we'll put it against the side here, and the top all the way up. I use the top left method because I always know where this top left button, this top left corner is. Whether it is a phone, a tablet, or viewing this on another device of various sizes, you always know where that top left button or top left corner is. So that's what I'll do. And you can see the constraints here. Now, inside here, we're going to give this an ID. We're going to type this as ID login. And I'm going to type label. Okay? So ID login label. So this is nothing more than a label. Now, we do need to come in here. We need to make a string. So we'll type in string, hit enter, and we'll come up and say this is login. Close this out, and then type login. All right. So we're going to delete this text and type @string and then login. And this will change this to a login screen. If you need to turn off, you see when you highlight over this, if you need to turn off this information, this little icon right here, hide constraints, if you click this on, it will only do this only when you select it. When we have more than one on here, it gets really confusing if you don't hide them. Next, we're going to come in and do another text view right underneath. So we'll take this. I will take the top of this and go to the bottom of the login. And then take this over to the side. So I'll come over here. We're going to line these up to the left. Now, we need one just like we did with the login. We need to come in here and do password. If we can spell it correctly. Okay, now click this, come over here to the text and type @string password. And that will change this here. So now that we have our labels, let's start adding in our text boxes. We're going to come over here and select text. Inside here, various text formats will be, each text box will have a different type of format. You'll have a different keyboard for each appropriate layout. For instance, if I was to put in password numeric, it would only bring up a number pad for when you're entering that in. Email brings up one where there's an @ symbol in there so that it's easier to type in an email. So what we're going to do is come up with plain text. I'm going to click and drag this in. And I'm going to take the left constraint and put it to my login. Take the top constraint and go to the top. And then go ahead and give myself a little space. Something around that. Now, a good practice is to tell the user what they should be typing inside this box. Right now it says name. So let's change that up. So we're going to add a string again. And we're going to call this login hint. And this will be enter a username. So I'm going to come over here, and I want to change this to ID login. What do I want to name this? Let's login text using Camelback. Okay. Now it comes down here to hint, and the reason why we're doing this is we're going to put in @string and login hint. And we're going to delete this name. And by doing that, it actually comes up here, and if you look at it, it says enter a username. See how that works? So now the user knows exactly what they want in there. Not an email address, but a username. So let's come over here. We're going to drag password in. And I'm going to try to left justify these just like this. I'm going to click this. Click this top one over to the top of the bottom of the username. Click the left over to password, and like I said, left justify. I don't put password hints on here because when they start typing in, it automatically is recognized by the hiding of the characters. So we have this now. The last thing we need to do is we need to add a button. So hit all, scroll to the top, we're going to click and drag in a button. So I'll drag this over here. I'm going to take this and bring this over, click this one, and I'm actually going to attach this to the bottom of the password. Okay. And I'm going to right justify all of these. If you notice, you'll see a line that forms all the way up here when I'm adjusting these. So when I'm adjusting these, you'll see a line up here. That's when you know that you have them lined up. So we need to change this. It can't be button. We need to change this to login. So let's add another string resource. We're going to enable this login button text. Close this up, and I'm just going to type in login. Now, why didn't I use the string login up here for this one? If for some reason I didn't want to put login and I wanted to put username here, when I would change this string, then it would actually change this button to say username. So make sure that you're creating a one-for-one string for that. So let's go over to button. Let's go to, we're going to change this ID to BTN and then login. I always try to name, if it's a button, I name it BTN and then a name. If it's a text, TXT, etc. Alright, so I have the button login here. And now I want to come down to where the text is. So I'm going to come here. Let me scroll down so you can see that. And I'm going to type @string and then login button text. And by clicking off of that, it'll come up and say login. Now there are a couple things I want to look at. The top one here, I want to make sure that you put in an ID login text. I put in, instead of typing text in here, I'll put an ID if it's on this page. Okay. The other one I want to make sure that is selected is select all on focus. This option will, if they type something in wrong, we can apply a focus to each of these text boxes and it will select all of the text inside there to allow the user to delete information easy. So we're going to click this one. I'm going to type ID password text and make sure that select unfocus. And I'll just say yes. All right. We have our first layout done. All of our constraints are here. So I'm going to click this on, and I can make sure that I have some constraints. And I'm looking at each of these. So when next we come on, we'll start the next video and put some code behind this to make sure that the user has a good interface and a easier time of getting through this screen. And we'll see you then.